Good evening, cult members, and welcome to the Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
And this is The Big Show. This is our weekly sit-down, discuss the news show. And it's been a few weeks since we've done one of these.
Yeah, I was going to say, it hasn't been so weekly recently.
No, we've talked about this. We moved. If you haven't noticed, the background has changed a little bit. The lighting's changed a little bit. We sold our house and moved to an apartment. And so we've been a hot mess of moving and trying to figure out where everything is.
Right, but now we are all unpacked.
We are all unpacked, and I still have to take boxes to storage.
Right.
So we've been doing a Game of Thrones weekly review show.
Yep.
We've been pretty diligent on that. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about Game of Thrones today. We're going to talk about some news and stuff like that, but after we come back from break, we'll talk about Game of Thrones, and it's going to be spoiler heavy. So if you just want to stick around because you haven't watched Game of Thrones yet, then we understand after the break we'll be talking about all that.
Yep.
So let's get into this week's episode of News and Notes, which really isn't anything other than Game of Thrones and Endgame.
Right.
There's been a couple different things. We just did the trailer reaction for
Maleficent,
the Mistress of Evil. She definitely did have the mistress outfit on at the end, Cody Fingers.
Right. A little risque for a kids Disney movie.
Right.
And the severe cheekbones.
And the bright red lipstick.
Yeah.
It's kind of creepy. How does it stay perfect like that? Like I don't understand.
It's a dye.
It's a dye?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Well, that's disappointing. I thought it was magic.
Okay. Maybe for her.
Oh, okay. Magic. All right.
She is a mistress of evil.
Mistress of evil. Let's talk about something that did come out that got our attention, and that is Stephen Knight is doing a Christmas Carol miniseries starring Guy Pearce and Andy Serkis.
Yep. And when it first got announced, we were like, what? That's the most random pairing ever. And then we saw pictures.
Right.
And now we're in.
The thing about this was, so Stephen Knight has written a bunch of stuff. Taboo, which we love, Pinky Blinders, which we love, Eastern Promises, and that kind of stuff. He wrote that Matthew McConaughey movie that just came out, Serenity.
Oh, yeah.
He wrote that. And so he's got some stuff that he's done in the past that we have really liked. And he was supposed to be doing this adaptation of A Christmas Story with Tom Hardy as Ebenezer Scrooge.
Right.
And because they've worked a bunch with Peaky Blinders and everything else, that they wanted to do this too. And I guess Tom couldn't do it because of scheduling, whatever, but he ends up being an executive producer on that. So they brought in Guy Pearce to play Ebenezer Scrooge. And I was just like, yes. Now, the penultimate Christmas Story version is Scrooged with Bill Murray. There is no other better version of.
Right.
There's the older ones, and there's the Patrick Stewart one, which is really good. But
right.
Scrooged is the one.
Scrooged and A Christmas Story. This is Christmas Carol. Christmas Story is...
Did I say Christmas Story?
Yeah.
All right, whatever.
Christmas Story is his, we have to watch that at Christmas, and Scrooged is my, we have to watch that at Christmas.
Yes.
And this is
A
Christmas Carol.
Carol. Hi,
Not
Carol.
Not with the you'll shoot your eye out BB gun.
Didn't you all miss me screwing up words? No? All right. So Andy Serkis is going to play the Ghost of Christmas Past. Stephen Graham is going to play Jacob Marley. Charlotte Riley is going to play Ludi. I'm trying to see who else is in here. Rudiger Hauer.
No, Rutger Hauer.
Rutger Hauer. What? Oh, wow.
Rutger Hauer.
Rutger Hauer is playing the Ghost of Christmas Future.
Okay.
And so kind of some interesting, picks in here. I'm sure it's going to be out on the BBC. It says FX and BBC are doing a co-production on it. So we might get it on BBC like a week or two earlier, and then maybe FX here right at Christmas or something like that.
I don't know.
It's really weird. When the BBC stuff is really kind of hard to figure out at times.
Yeah, well, yeah. In Britain, they tend to get stuff. Sorry, I'm like popping my peas. They tend to get stuff earlier than we do.
Right.
Here on BBC America, but if FX is part of it,
maybe they'll do a co-opening
all at
weekend.
the same. Yeah, the big simulcast worldwide. I don't know, miniseries. So it's going to be over a couple weeks.
Yeah, miniseries. It didn't say in the article about like duration, but it'd be cool if they did. Christmas passes one day, Christmas.
Yeah, well,
today.
They could do 4 weeks if they do the whole story, because there's like a big, like in Scrooge, there's a big long
opening
thing before you actually even get to the ghosts, and then do each of the ghosts, and then the Christmas future, and wrapping it all up in the last one.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see how that. And it looks like it's going to be in that 1880s England, like how the original story from Charles Dickens was set.
Yeah, if you're like us and are like, I'm not sure how I feel about this, go look on the internet, find the pictures.
Yeah. And
really cool.
If it's going to be in that Peaky Blinders taboo kind of feel and darkness and everything, I'm going to be super in. It'd be cool to kind of see a different version of this story that way. We did It Chapter 2 trailer last week, right at the end of the week last week. It looks awesome. I'm going to be watching through my eyes a lot. I'm going to add that and the Mistress of Evil trailers to the back end of this episode.
If you're watching on YouTube.
If you're on the podcast feed, go to the YouTube channel and
watch
subscribe.
Our trailer reactions.
Watch our trailer reactions.
Because interestingly enough, trailer reactions don't really transfer to
podcast. I mean, they kind of really descriptive words.
So
look, pretty lights, pretty. That's about what we did with the Mistress of Evil trailer.
Right.
We want to ask you guys to help us out on Patreon. We're doing a Patreon push right now. We're working towards a goal, and we're looking to get new patrons to help us. We just we bought new music and we bought shirts. Oh, we should have wore our shirts tonight.
Oh. Yeah.
Maybe we'll wear them next week for the preview Phoenix Comic Con, because
I'm wearing my new Boba Fett shirt.
I know. My wife got an actual a new Star Wars shirt.
I did.
Now we just get Josh to get a Star Wars shirt.
Right? I have 2 shirts, Josh. You have none.
But we're working towards getting some new equipment and expanding our brand a little bit, so some advertising, and then we want to get stickers to give to you guys and T-shirts and that kind of stuff. So
we're doing if you're a $5 subscriber for 4 months, you'll get a shirt.
We'll send you a shirt
with our picture on it.
Michael, I got to get a hold of you and
we need sizes
and stuff.
Addresses.
Just message me. Let's talk about in-game for a few minutes before we go to break. We're not going to talk about the movie itself. We're going to talk about the phenomenon that has been in-game.
Right.
The movie, the Russos came out and said the spoiler ban is up. So if it's been spoiled, we apologize. It wasn't us. But we do want to.
I think everybody on the planet went and saw it the first weekend.
I'm pretty sure it made $357 million opening weekend in 3 days.
Domestic.
Domestic 1.2 worldwide. Everybody
made
combined.
$1.5 billion in the first weekend.
Right. And so if you do some quick math, let's say their tickets are average about $12 a seat.
Do 10 because that's easier math.
It's 120 million people went and watched it on opening weekend.
Yeah.
So it won again this weekend. Actually, it made, I have all kinds of notes. It made $63 million this weekend. And Pokemon Pikachu, Detective Pikachu, opened for 58. And so there's some people saying that maybe that the run for Endgame is done. And it might be because we get John Wick this weekend and everybody's super excited about John Wick.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would say the run is done, but definitely the big numbers.
The big numbers. The big domestic numbers, internationally is still going to do pretty good.
Yeah.
I've seen it 3 times. She's seen it twice. We're talking about trying to go it again and see it again. And so it's one of those like super phenomenons. We went to an event, part of our other hobby down in Sierra Vista, and we told people, hey, we're going to talk about this. So you understand, we're going to spoil it. And we had multiple people come over and sit down at a table with us. I'm like, okay, we have to talk about Endgame. And it's been this cultural phenomenon that's been going on, much like Game of Thrones, which is the other thing we're going to talk about tonight. But I wanted to run down some numbers of stuff that's right now where it's at. Right now it's at 2.489 billion with a B in 3 weeks. It is the biggest single day. It made the most money, the biggest money maker on a single day ever at 157. That was the Saturday. It was the Friday. Biggest opening day, biggest Friday, biggest Saturday, biggest Sunday, biggest opening weekend, biggest opening 3-day gross, biggest 4-day, 5-day, 6-day, 7-day, 8-day, 9-day, 10-day gross.
Right.
It's also the fastest to 100 million, 150 million, 200 million, 250, blah, 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 all the way up to 500 million. It got to $500 million in 8 days.
Yeah.
8 days. Hellboy didn't even make it out of the 60s.
Right. Right. Well, I think it goes to show, and it kind of goes along with Game of Thrones, that Hollywood has had this...
Figured it out.
Well, they've had this idea that audiences won't invest for the long haul to these,
right.
It's a 10-year, 11-year
right.
journey. And, for the longest time, 1 or 2, maybe 3, you were pushing it. And usually by the 3rd movie, sometimes even the 2nd movie, you're getting into some craptastic, straight to DVD movies. And this just kind of proves that if you put out good movies, it doesn't necessarily matter how many, or how long go.
It has to make Marvel had learned from their early mistakes with some of their movies and have progressively gotten better with the storylines. And it helps with the CGI too. The CGI has gotten really good. It allows them to do a lot more stuff. The whole battle on Titan in Infinity War was a soundstage.
Right.
And Josh Brolin was actually on set, but he's not 8 feet tall and purple.
He's not?
He acts 8 foot tall and purple sometimes. But this is an example of doing good storytelling over a long period of time and having that faith in your storytellers. This is where we want to go with this episode, this movie. Go do it, and we'll say your way.
And I think some people were concerned about the Disney buying Fox, and rightfully so. I get what a lot of people were saying, but this is kind of maybe a plus side to it. You've got a big company that can afford to have some movies that don't maybe do so well, but are still furthering the story.
Right,
they're continuing to tell the story, where you have some other studios who start to
panic,
lose faith, DC,
Warner Brothers,
and it implodes, or it goes in a different direction, and people are like, I don't care anymore. But they there were some that the writing wasn't good. There were some that just weren't big. The Ant-Man movies aren't exactly huge money makers.
And they're not meant to be big epics.
Right.
These Infinity War and Endgame are both epics in the classic sense of the term, big scope.
But they wouldn't have meant that if they hadn't had Ant-Man
or Thor.
And the Thor that everybody hates is, pretty in the forefront. It's
prominent. It's a very prominent. Yeah.
So
just to give you an idea of where everything lays right now, all-time worldwide box office is Avatar at $2.788 billion. Endgame is at $2.489 billion, so it's about a $300 million gap.
Yeah, they're gonna totally get there.
Some people are saying that it won't get there.
Totally gonna get there.
Part of the thing with Avatar is it only opened for like $70 million or $60 million, something like that. But as more and more people went and saw it, the more the word of mouth on that kind of kept going.
It had legs.
And it had legs for a long, long, long time. And that was partly because of the new 3D rendering and everything that they did. And that movie doesn't hold up as well now. Now that they've got all the new stuff. So I'm really interested to see what the new Avatar. So we got Avatar, Endgame, Titanic at 2.1, Force Awakens, Infinity War, Jurassic World. I don't know how Jurassic World made $1.6 billion. I just don't know. It's good. I really like Jurassic World, but it was
a nostalgia thing.
The original Avengers was number 7. Furious 7 is 8.
Yeah.
Age of Ultron, which everybody apparently hates except for the two of us, apparently doesn't hate it because it's 9th, and Black Panther is 10. So there's 3 Avenger movies and Black Panther in the top 10 all time. Now, Black Panther was a cultural phenomenon for a lot of other reasons outside of the story, the Marvel overall story and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just been really kind of fun to watch everything that's been going on with the way that the populace, that the viewers were so good about not sharing spoilers, and we went and saw it on the Thursday at the fan event. So we were the first overall people to really kind of see it. Not
average Joes.
Average Joes. That's a good way of putting it. At Global Gym, we're better than you, and we know it. And so I got invited to a in-game discussion group so we could have discussions, because all of us left the theater and went, oh my God, we have to talk about this.
Can't tell anybody.
And even in our Stardust reaction, we did a non-spoiler, just
non sequitur spoilers.
Yeah, it's kind of what we did. Zero reference spoilers. But the people overall did a really good job of not spoiling it. And then once the Russo said, "Okay, it's been 2 weeks, we can talk about that," all the actors started showing all their behind the scenes photos and all their videos and all the different things they did. So it's just been really kind of fun to watch the box office and all the things that have been going on around this. The only other thing I wanted to add was I'm struggling with this, but they're trying really hard. They're saying that Detective Pikachu is now the biggest opening of a video game adaptation ever.
Wow.
Now,
not much to live up to.
Now, right. The biggest one before this was the newest Tomb Raider. I have a little problem with this because technically it's a card game first, and then the game came out, so they're really structuring to make a video game. Everybody wants a video game, a good video game movie, and I just don't consider that a video game per se for me. It is, but it's not. It is,
but it didn't start out that way.
I don't know. It's like if they do Magic at the Gathering and it's like the biggest game movie ever. It's like anyways, off track a little bit, but we're gonna go to break. When we come back, we're going to do a deep dive on Game of Thrones. And we're going to do a lot of discussion about what the discussion has been around Game of Thrones. And it's going to be spoiler heavy. So if you haven't seen the newest episode, they're calling it The Bells, episode 5. If you have not seen it, we understand if you don't come back from the break. If you have seen it and you want to listen to us talk about how stupid everybody's being, then please stick around.
Spoilers.
It's not really spoiling anything. And so we'll be right back. Hello, cult members. Like what you've heard on this podcast? Then please subscribe and follow us here. You can also find us on Facebook at the Pop Culture Cult. We're on Instagram at PopCultureCult1. And we're on Twitter at Pop_Cult1. We're also on YouTube at PopCultureCult and on the Stardust app under PopCultureCult. Please help us by liking, following, and subscribing to everything we have. This helps us build a bigger and better cult of pop culture. And we're back.
Dun, dun,
Dun, dun, dun. And like we said, we're going to talk about Game of Thrones. We're going to spoil the hell out of it. The newest episode of The Bells. So spoilers. Okay, here we go. We're going to talk about... I want to talk about the episode for just a couple minutes overall, because we really didn't do that in the review last night.
Okay.
We kind of talked about stuff that happened, but we didn't talk about like our overall thoughts of the episode.
Okay.
So how did you feel about the episode overall?
I liked it. I understand some of the criticisms, but just after watching it last night, I thought it was good. It didn't go in places. There's so many people trying to figure out they've got their fan theories and they're trying to figure out what's going to happen. And this has been going on for however many years, 8 seasons and 16 years or whatever.
138 years.
They all look really good. And everybody's trying, got their theories about what's going to happen. And I don't think anybody had Cersei and Jaime being crushed to death.
No. Whoever had that in the pool did really, really well.
So I thought that was good. It's got to be hard to try to write that. Some of the criticisms I heard today this was the big one. They're rushing it. They've been known for all this character development and backstory development. And I'm like, with what time?
Yeah,
they can't continue to develop. They're done.
There's 7 seasons and 67 episodes worth of character development
to get to this point. Now, I wonder if people are just like, they don't want it to end. It's not ending the way they wanted it to. If it had been something really like that everybody expected, then everybody would have been complaining about that. I mean, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but people are complaining about how Jaime and Cersei died, and it's like, but how did you want that to happen? Did you want it to be Dany? Because that was super expected, and everybody would have been complaining about.
Or Jaime killing her.
Jaime killing her, again, super expected. Arya, this was, nobody expected this. So why aren't people happy about that?
Isn't that why part of the reason why you've loved the story overall is that stuff has happened unexpectedly? Yeah. The Red Wedding.
No one expected Ned to die in the, first...
episode 6 or whatever, and Jaime losing his hand. I mean, I know it's from the books, but those who didn't read the books, I'm raising my hand, I didn't. It was a huge surprise to me when
when Joffrey died.
Joffrey dies and like everything.
So I don't. I mean, okay, it's not blood squirting from their eyes, Joffrey dying, but that was super unexpected. And Dany turning while we all kind of saw that coming. It was on an epic scale.
Epic scale. Yeah. I've gone back and forth with this is amazing, as an episode to it's just a really good episode. I can't. I've heard some of the criticism, and some of the criticism is legitimate. The writing right now is not on par with the first 4 seasons, the stuff from Martin directly, and they just adapted. But it's a lot better than what we've had maybe in season 6, the setup season. We had a whole season of just setup for season 7.
Right. Everybody complained about the whole Arya and the faceless god, or the god of many faces, and the Isle of Black and White and stuff, and how that was the most boring thing ever.
It was super important for 35 seconds, and
right. I think this was better than that. I mean,
I feel overall this season. I'll talk about the season actually as a whole later, but right now this episode, I think the way they had set it up and the way they've been going forward, and how we got to this point here, I think this episode is really, really, really well done, but maybe not at the level that everyone has expected for the run of this show.
And I think that's just everybody building it up.
And I think that's actually where I was going to go. I think there's this fan expectation right now. Everybody's got a theory on what's going to happen at the end of Game of Thrones, and the Night King is going to win, and Cersei's going to win, and Cersei's going to burn everybody, and it's Jon's going to be the one who kills Dany. All these different theories of different things, and it has, I think, made a lot of people get lost from actually enjoying and watching the show.
Yeah.
This was one of the problems with Last Jedi from my point of view. Everybody's expectations after The Force Awakens, and hearing how good the filming had gone, and how there was no bumps in the road after Rogue One, and they were super excited about everything that was going to happen. Everybody got all these ideas in their head about how amazing that Last Jedi was going to be, and people's expectation got to a point where it was never going to reach that.
Right. Well, and I can, not to get off on a Last Jedi tangent, but
I think there's a parallel conversation here between the two.
And I can honestly say that was part of the problem that I had with that movie.
Right.
Is that I try not to build my expectations, but there was a direction that I expected it to go, and it did not do that.
Right.
And I didn't necessarily appreciate that. And I think that's
kind of what's going on right now with. Let's start with Jaime. We have 3 other points we want to talk about. We've already kind of talked about Jaime and Cersei, so let's kind of go there right now. And people are complaining right now that Jaime's arc of redemption and him finally being with Brienne of Tarth and everything everything everybody wanted was him to end up being the good person. In the end, he went back to his toxic relationship with the woman he loves.
Right.
And although I've never been in that level of toxic relationship, I've had friends, we've had family members who have been. And so I when he left, I had a theory that he was leaving to go kill Cersei, because that was the prophecy, except it's a prophecy that, again, prophecies aren't a thing, or are not nearly as important as everybody puts their stamp on. But he was either doing that, or he sat down, he tried to have a relationship with somebody, and he realized that person was not the person he wanted to be with. And he decided to go back to the person that he loved the most.
So I think that the Lannister children are damaged. They always have been.
Yes. Daddy worked them over really good.
Right. for different reasons, but I think it's a self-esteem thing. First of all, the person who can push a small boy out of a tree.
Right.
And
tower. It was a tower.
Out of the tower. Sorry.
tower,
Yeah. He was in the tower. So, you know, to expect him to do a complete 360. I mean, he tried, and I feel like he realized I am not a good person. I mean, he says that.
He says it to Brienne.
To Brienne, I am not a good person.
Breaks up with her. Quitty fingers.
You know, he wanted it. He wanted that kind of relationship or whatever, but it was more self-loathing.
Yeah, he wanted that kind of relationship to prove that he wasn't the person that he was,
right. And it didn't make him feel any better. He still felt like a.
And so he makes a decision. And actually, the scene, the first night that Jaime and Brienne are together, Brienne is sleeping and Jaime is laying there, and he's looking at her. And I think, at least in his head, from my point of view, at least, he thought he would feel complete,
different,
complete with her, because she is so pure and is so good. And when that happened, he realized it wasn't, and that started the wheel to change. And then he finds out about Cersei killing Rhaegal, and taking out the fleet and everything. And so he's just like, that's where I need to be. I need to be there because this is going to be the end. And him trying to save Cersei, for me, is as toxic as that relationship has been, and as many problems as Cersei has been towards Jaime, that's the most loving way. That's the most. I'm trying to figure out how to word this. That's the most love he can show back to her. At that point, is I had a chance to be here with you at the end.
Yeah, I mean,
I tried to save you, but I can't. So I'm here with you at the end.
I think that he's always been the one to show more affection, or at least recently, maybe not always, but
he's always been the more going to her.
Yeah, and she's like busy with the kids and busy with politics and busy with whatever, and he's just like, tell me what I can do for you.
Yeah, he's very puppy doggy to her.
Yeah,
and in the end, she is very puppy dog to him. But his story arc, his attempt at a redemption story is not complete until your story is complete.
Right.
And so having his story end essentially where it begins, in the arms of Cersei, makes the most sense for their story.
And a tower fell on him.
Which was pretty awesome. Mm-hmm. Now, if you want to have a discussion about the way they went out, being stuck in the crypts and the whatever at King's Landing at the Red Keep, I like it, but I can understand why people have a hard time with that's the way they go out.
Yeah. I mean,
kind of like secondary,
Yeah, it's a little unsatisfying, but then first of all, life isn't satisfying. Second of all, it's Game of Thrones.
I'm quite satisfied.
It's Game of Thrones. It's nothing is supposed to ever turn out the way you expect it.
Right.
And like I said, people would have been pissed if it had been the trope way.
Right.
Right.
The Romeo and Juliet way, which is what I thought it was going to be. That Jaime was going to kill Cersei
and then
kill himself, or she poisons him and then he figures it out and kills her before the poison kicks in or whatever. Let's talk about the other Lannister child. Tyrion.
Or is he?
Dun dun dun. There's been a lot of people complaining about how he has become the dumbest character in the show. And it's because of the writing, and like they're dumbing down the writing, and especially with Tyrion. And there is some good like commentary out there about this subject. From my point of view, though, Tyrion hasn't been out in the world on a regular basis in 4 seasons. He's been with Dany.
Right.
And the one time he was at King's Landing, they brought the undead with them.
Right.
And you know, tried to convince Cersei that this is the war that we need to worry about. And the idea that every decision that he's been making has been the right decision with all the information that he had, and then something has happened outside of his knowledge or his ability to see or the scope of influence or whatever, however you want to look at it. That's not because he's dumb. That's because he's ill-informed, and that's different.
Yeah. And he also, I don't know, you know, he's got Dany to contend with, who has proven over and over again that she'll just go do whatever the fuck she wants,
Right.
regardless of what the plan was originally.
Right.
Watch the Battle of Winterfell. Not that he hasn't had those people before, you know, I mean, Cersei would do whatever she wanted, and
Right.
Tywin would do whatever he wanted, and I don't feel like he's had a journey, you know. He's not the same person that he was when he
Right.
first left King's Landing after Joffrey died.
And he's put himself in a position to be a super important player in the Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
But he backed the wrong horse is really
Right.
what it came down to.
Well, and he's changed. Like I said, I'm just kind of thinking about this. So he isn't the same person since he left King's Landing. Now he wants he's trying to save King's Landing, the people of King's Landing,
yeah.
and he's backing Dany because he believes that she's actually going to break the wheel and bring about change and not have. So he's almost done a complete 180. He's not the guy who drinks and
the selfish
goes
guy.
to to the whorehouses. He's all about the people. He's more Varys than than how he used to be.
And I think that's just spending time with Varys. I think he starts to see he never saw that aspect of the world.
Well, he was a spoiled little Lannister kid. He didn't,
and he was an imp, so he was treated differently for that. And he spent all of his time in whorehouses, and so when he gets to spend more and more time with Varys, Varys was a child from the streets and built himself up, and so he brought in a different perspective, and that's part of growth as a person, is getting new perspectives from other people and learning and changing how you see the world. Are you listening, Republicans? And so the idea that that Tyrion has become the dumbest character is really upsetting to me. He's doing everything correctly. He's trying to defend the people. Yeah. He's trying to help Dany do the best job that he feels that she can do. And through all of this, he's learning that Dany is the wrong horse.
Yeah. And, he hasn't had as much experience being the clever good guy as he has the clever bad guy or chaotic neutral or whatever. He's only been doing this for a couple of years, so he's going to make some mistakes. But and just rewatching, we were rewatching the episode while we were doing dinner, and I've noticed actually over the last, maybe this season and a little bit of last season, his face is gotten more just like worried, and like he's always kind of got a scowl or like everything, he's concerned that everything is going badly.
Varys even points out in the previous episode, in episode 4, The Last of the Starks, he says you're drinking more, and you're drinking more and more. And so it's like it's weighing on Tyrion a lot more. He drank before he was bored, and that's just kind of who his character was. But now he's drinking out of to numb his mind from what actually is going on around him, and it was a nice little catch, I think. I think I'm going to be very proud of ourselves for catching that. I think. Let's talk about Dany. First, let's talk about the heel turn she's going full Hulk Hogan and is going from the ultimate good guy to the ultimate bad guy. And
So I would like to point out that her clothing has gotten more and more red over the last couple of episodes.
Actually, I've noticed a few people online have kept kind of pointing out that her clothing is matching more and more of her brother Viserion.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the prophecy is the Red Queen, right? The Mad Queen.
I think it's the Red Queen. Something like that. Yeah, I don't know. There's so many prophecies, and not all of them are from the movie or the show. It's kind of a movie. There are a bunch from the books too,
yeah.
And so, but they've been laying this groundwork for the entire series, and in the idea of her, she's lost everyone.
Right.
She's lost her most trusted. What was Jura? Protector.
Yeah.
Protector's the best. She lost her best friend. She's lost two of her children. And then Varys and Tyrion are going behind her back.
Yeah.
She had Jon. She actually fell for Jon. She hasn't loved anybody since.
Drago.
And so she finally falls in love with somebody that she finds as an equal.
Yeah.
And Jon pulls away from her once he realizes that they're related. And in this episode, the scene between Jon and Dany where she sits there and without saying it, pleads Jon to save me. Be here with me. Help me.
Well, she does actually say it. She says, I can rule with love, or I can rule with
out of fear.
Out of fear,
Yeah.
and
rule with fear. I mean, it was with fear.
Out of fear. And then he, they start kissing, and then he pulls away, and he just made her decision for her. So
right.
I mean,
she is
kind of
absolutely alone. Now she has Grey Worm, but Grey Worm's just going to follow her around like a puppy dog and do whatever she says because she's the one that freed them. But her turn has been hinted at as we go along, and her viciousness has been hinted at. The Tullys, not the Tullys, the Tullys.
Yeah. Sam's dad and brother. Yeah.
Tyrion tried to get her to put them in black and send them to the wall, and she just burned them in front of everybody. And that's like a hint. Like here's a hint.
Well, you knew this at the very beginning when the witch killed Drogo, when she begged her for. Well, she didn't kill him, but she made him a zombie or whatever.
Right, and took her baby and took Dany's baby.
And Dany had her killed. So you've known.
And she burned the leadership of the Dothraki and did all those different things. So it's been there the whole time. Her turning on the people. She had a line where she talked about how people will learn centuries later or generations later.
They'll be thankful
to not be under a tyrant.
Right.
And so, at least from my point of view, it is in her head that she has to eliminate everyone that is in King's Landing to eliminate that tyrant.
She's like
life
killing a germ.
Yeah,
she has to eradicate and start.
She is the radiation for cancer, and the cancer is King's Landing.
Right.
That's how a way of looking at it. Now, I'm not saying that that's not necessarily the way that it is, but that's the way it's presented as of right now. With one more episode left.
Obviously, that's how she felt. I mean, you could almost say that it was. A spur of the moment, but I don't think it was.
I think once the bells ring and she looks at the Red Keep and realizes that that's been the center of her whole family being crushed for 300 years, and her lack of empathy towards anyone in King's Landing and her unstable emotional state.
Yeah.
Really, really like all clicks in at the same time. And you can even see it in Emilia Clarke's face. Like she did a great acting job sitting there on a foam dragon, which is how it's really done, but then they CGI'd a dragon in. But her face changing and her just going full on. Now her father, the Mad King, said, burn them all.
Yep.
Burn them all. And he had already set up the wildfire in different stores around the town, and he was trying to get him saying burn them all was him trying to get the igniters of the wildfire to ignite the fires. Fast forward 30 years, 20 years, whatever it ends up being, Dany's the one who burns it all. So she fulfills the wishes of her father. And why people are so upset with this, there's been multiple flashbacks, multiple dream sequences, multiple references that this was what was going to happen. And people's expectations have been, back to how we got into this conversation, people's expectations are so high that anything that isn't exactly the way they thought it was, people are being upset about it.
Yeah, because the whole shot of the dragon shadow flying over King's Landing was in Bran's vision of the future 2 seasons ago. Yeah. So I don't know why people are. I was just gonna say real quick that I could almost make an argument that it wasn't spur of the moment; it was pre-planned, because when Tyrion asks her to promise that when they ring the bells, she never says anything to Grey Worm. She just nods at him. And I was like, what if they had a because he was in her rooms earlier, they had a preordained, pre-set up thing that we are not going to take prisoners, we are going to wipe them all out. And that's why Grey Worm went ahead and, I mean, he was pissed, but that's why he went ahead and
attacked
killed
the Lannister armor. That's a really good point. I think that's maybe something that people are missing upon first watching. It might be it's like Endgame. You've got to watch it like 3 or 4 or 5 times to actually catch all the different things that are going on. And I think that's one of the things too. I think one of the last things I want to talk about, because we only have a few more minutes left, that we is I think people most are upset that Dany is the big bad in the entire series.
And you should go back and watch like the second episode when Rob and Ned are talking about, is it Rob? Robert? Yeah, Robert Baratheon. And Ned are talking, and he says that white-haired bitch in the east, I'm gonna kill her. Right? That's like the second episode. And they talked about her on and off the first whole 2 seasons, kind of, over there. Yes, of course.
She's been the big bad all along, and everybody's been thinking that Cersei was the big bad, at least for the living. But she was really just an overprotective mother who got corrupted by the power that actually she ended up getting. Even in the end, you felt for her dying. And people are upset with the idea that this is the person that we thought was the big bad, and now they forced us to feel for her, that she's dying in the arms of the man she loves. Besides all the other decisions that everybody's been made, she still loves him.
This show is one giant magic act. Pay no attention to what's going on over here, because look at all the drama over here. Pay no attention.
Here's the Night King. Here's zombies. Here's
Cersei,
giants. Here's Cersei. Here's all these things. Oh, by the way, the one person that the old school leadership in Westeros was afraid of the most built the biggest army ever conceived by man.
Right. Or
woman, and or human, and brought that army through gigantic, huge, epic battles, mostly intact, and took King's Landing in a day, which had never been done. And so that idea is just I think that's probably one of the things that people are starting to have a hard time really realizing is that the cute little blonde chick is actually the bad guy.
Yeah. Surprise.
Which is awesome, which is why this show is so good. So that's our news. That's the big show this week. That's our news and notes. And then a more extended conversation about Game of Thrones that we didn't do last night, but I think we both wanted to do.
We've had some time to process.
Yes, and we're probably going to talk about it some more because there's the whole cocaine bowl and there's the stuff with Arya and all that kind of stuff. So let us know what you guys thought. Leave us a comment down below. Thank you for following us on all the feeds, YouTube channels, and all that stuff, and the Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that, blah, 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 blah. And until next time, good evening, cult members.